Hey everybody! Ooh, that's very dark. 1 second. There we go. Now you can see my face. Because that's what you tuned in for. Anyway, it's time for the weekly news recap for the 17th to the 23rd of June 2024. So this week, Nintendo had their Nintendo Direct. For the middle of the year, the June Nintendo Direct, which is somewhat tradition. Sometimes it's May. Anyway, this is basically Nintendo kind of setting people up for what's coming out for the rest of the year. So first up, we had Mario and Luigi Brothership. So this will be another entry in the Mario and Luigi series that we haven't seen a new entry in quite a while, I think. It's following on the heels of things like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, Super Mario RPG Remake, and that kind of thing. So it's going to be that kind of game. I don't think the Mario and Luigi games were like that before. Mario and Luigi Superstars. I don't know because I never played them, to be honest. But that's kind of what they're going for. Gameplay wise, it's kind of got the turn-based stuff from the Mario RPG games, and then there's like a couple of mini games, a couple of platforming elements, and that kind of thing. Art style is kind of interesting. It's a lot looser animation than we've expected from Nintendo Mario's games, at least more recent ones. They've been getting a lot more looser with Mario's animations. Super Mario Wonder, if anyone's played that, you might have seen Mario's a little more wavy, I guess, in that game. Anyway, Brothership is going to be released in November 7th for Mario and Luigi Brothership. Then we have Nintendo World Championship, the NES edition. So this is a collection of just mini games. The Nintendo World Championships, back when it was done, back in early 90s maybe, was this kind of get together. It was sort of like one of the first like officially sponsored video game competition kind of thing. And they would get people together and they would engage in trying to do various things in Nintendo games. Like, can you beat the entirety of Mario 1, only using warps? Or, how far can you get in Kirby? Or what's the quickest way you can beat Meta Knight? Or what's your best time in Excite Wheels and that kind of stuff? So this is more or less just a collection of those kind of challenges that you can all now play. And, the world leaderboards and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool piece of video game history. I think we don't really do a whole lot of that kind of stuff anymore. Fairy Tail 2, it's a sequel to Fairy Tail, I guess. It's based on the anime. I know nothing about it. It's down as a real-time strategy game here, but it's not. An RTS is something very, very different, Polygon. What are you talking about? It's a lot closer to it's a real-time JRPG, really, is what they're going for. Anyway, Fantasian Neo Dimension. This is the game that the Final Fantasy's original creator, Hironobu Sakaguchi, had been working on, and it had been stuck in Apple Arcade for a very long time. Basically, it launched with Apple Arcade, and since Apple Arcade is dead, basically, we were kind of worried this game wouldn't be able to escape from the corpse of Apple Arcade, but it has managed to get out. So the really interesting thing about Fantasian is how they made their environments. So all of the environments are actually diorama miniatures, real life. Like they made them like tiny models, and they would just use photogrammetry to take, really high res, high definition, high fidelity images of them. So everything there is like tiny models, like you would see in like a Lord of the Rings miniature or like a Star Wars miniature. They would film for that kind of stuff. They just look really good. I really like the look of them. What they're kind of showing off there is this, because it was Apple Arcade and because it was a mobile game, what you were able to do was sort of collect fights. So you would just run around the map, get from point A to point B, wherever it is you're going, and rather than fight enemies as they come up, you can just say, I will store this enemy, and I will fight them later. And then doing that allowed you to obviously just, play through the game. If you were on your commute and you didn't want to get bogged down in time and doing combat, or maybe you like the sound effects in combat and you don't want to play that out on the bus or whatever, you could fight them later. Come back to it. There was obviously a cap on how many of those you could do. And I think there was also a case of the more of them you stacked with, the more difficult the enemies became and that kind of thing. good for grinding and that kind of sort of thing. Anyway, it's whatever the original Final Fantasy creator's been working on. I'll give him a free pass on pretty much anything. But yeah, I've been really wanting to play this, and I don't own. The only Apple product I have is a very old iPad. That's because I wanted to sketch on it, but then it turns out I'm not good at sketching, so that was the end of that. Anyway, Fantasian is out, I think, later this year. I don't think it has an actual release date. Yeah, this holiday. Nintendo Switch Sports is getting a new sport, basketball. My God, they've invented a new sport, you guys. When was the last time they invented a new sport? Like an officially recognized sport. I don't know. Anyway, Mio Memories in Orbit is a Metroidvania type thing, so of course it's immediately piqued my interest and probably nobody else's. I really liked its art direction and its art style. It's got this sort of watercolor feel to it. Probably using the term watercolor wrong, but that's what I'm going with. It's got the painterly, I guess. It feels like it's it's drawn rather than rendered image. Anyway, it's a Metroidvania. You run to the right. I'm already going to buy it, so they got me. They got me already. They know exactly what I like. Memories in Orbit is next year at some point. Disney Illusion Island is getting an update. Mystery in Monoth, whatever that means, and it's already out. So if you own Illusion Island, I believe it was a free update. It should already be out there and available for you. I never checked if my microphone was working. It is good. Okay, Hello Kitty Island Adventure is basically Animal Crossing, but Hello Kitty. Up until now, it was a mobile game. Same thing, same deal. I believe it was also an Apple Arcade thing. It's got out of the corpse of Apple Arcade. It will be a timed exclusive for Nintendo for a while, maybe like a year or so, but it will eventually make its way over to PlayStation and Xbox. It should also be pointed out that anything here that's not a Nintendo first-party property is also going to be on PlayStation and Xbox. So you're not going to get, obviously, the Nintendo World Championships and Mario and Luigi Brothership, whatever. That's going to be exclusive to the Switch. But stuff like Fairy Tail, Fantasian, Mio, Memories in Orbit, Disney Illusion Island, Hello Kitty, Looney Tunes, Wacky World of Sports is I believe it's like a multiplayer thing, and it's just like a bunch of sport arcade games like golf, football, basketball, tennis. I think that's it. I don't think there's any other ones. Among Us also got a free update. I think there's some new roles. Farmagia is kind of an interesting one. It's a farm sim, but rather than you growing crops and selling them as you do normally in most farm sims, you are growing Pokemon effectively to use in battle, like Pikmin, kind of. So you get like this horde of turnips, this horde of Oddish that you can just send against enemies. They're not all like vegetable type animals. There's like dogs and this crazy weird lion thing with horns. Donkey Kong Country Returns, I believe, was a Wii U game, and up until now had been kind of locked to the Wii U. So it's getting a HD remake or HD remaster for the Switch. Kind of mixed feelings on this one. I mean, it's good that it is away from the Wii U. Kind of issue is that Donkey Kong Returns had a kind of distinct art style, and the HD remaster kind of loses a lot of that charm. It's still going to be a Donkey Kong Country game. It's still going to be good. It's still going to be a really intricate and really difficult kind of 2D platformer kind of game, but it's a little disappointing that they've lost a lot of the charm with the HDify it. They've yassified it and lost basically all of its quirks. I don't know. I think a lot of people won't even notice, but I notice, and I'm a little disappointed by it. But I'm still gonna play it. Still gonna play it. Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. If you're not familiar with the HD 2D thing, it's games like Octopath Traveler or Triangle Strategy. It's got that like old pixel art style, but everything is incredible high definition lighting. That's kind of what they're going for HD 2D. So Dragon Quest III is getting the remake treatment. Why they chose 3, I don't know, because I'm not super familiar with like the Dragon Quest series. I've played a couple of the games, but never really followed its history or anything like that. So I don't know why they chose 3 specifically. Maybe it's one of the better received ones. I don't know. But it turns out they didn't just choose 3. They also They also chose 1 and 2. So Dragon Quest 3 Remake is going to be out first, but Dragon Quest 1 and 2 are also going to be out later in the year. They mentioned it there. So there is Dragon Quest 1 and 2 as well. Which one is Dragon Quest 1? Is this one? Because if it is, the Warrior of Light from Final Fantasy and whoever this guy is from Dragon Quest 1 look like very, very similar. Very similar. It's a little whatever. Okay. So November 14th for Dragon Quest 3, HD 2D, and some stage next year for Dragon Quest 1 and 2. It looks like Dragon Quest 1 and 2 will be a package deal. Funko game, who cares? Luigi Mansion 2 HD, again, this is another remaster, which I believe was a 3DS game exclusively, Luigi's Mansion 2. This is out really soon. It's out like next week. So this is mostly a trailer to just say, hey, it's coming out soon. Maybe give it a look. The new Dampa Men, again, not hugely familiar with whatever this is. But it's a weird version of Animal Crossing is what Polygon is going with. Mini games or whatever. I kind of tuned out, to be honest, when this was up. That's also out next month, July 27th. Metal Slug Attack Reloaded is not Metal Slug Tactics, which is also coming out soon. Metal Slug Attack Reloaded is kind of more of a tower defense thing, whereas Metal Slug Tactics is a Final Fantasy Tactics clone. It's a strategy RPG. This is out already. It came out the same day as the Nintendo Direct. But yeah, if you like the Metal Slug series, you're going to see a lot of familiar enemies, familiar character types, and so on. It's billed as a tower defense game. I'm not sure that's quite true exactly, because you don't stay put. You know, you stay put in a tower defense game, whereas you're kind of moving in this one. I'm not sure what you would call that. Standard combat game or standard war game. I don't know. A 2D RTS almost. It's kind of weird. Anyway, Darkest Dungeon 2. It's now officially on absolutely everything at this point. I think the only thing it's not on now is mobile. This would be the roguelike version of Darkest Dungeon. Not as well received. Darkest Dungeon 2. I think some of its later updates have gone down a little bit better because they made it a little bit more like the original game. The original game was kind of more of like a... So more like a battle of attrition. You were sort of making your way through the dungeon. You were losing people along the way, recruiting new people, and so on. Sort of just trying to just get a little bit closer to the end of the game. And it did have some element of a roguelike to it, but not really. You know, you were never really sent all the way back to the beginning, kind of thing. You know, you were always somewhat making progress, even if it was slow. Darkest Dungeon 2, you lost a lot of that. A lot of it was you're starting from the beginning, and if you lose all your party members, you're all the way back to the beginning again. And I feel like it wasn't in the same spirit as the first game. Anyway, Nintendo Switch Online Update Plus Expansion Pack is getting 4 new games. Link to the Past, Four Swords, Metroid Zero Mission from the Game Boy Advance, and from the Nintendo 64, Turok Dinosaur Hunter, that's the first Turok, and Perfect Dark. That we've seen Perfect Dark shown off at the Xbox showcase. You can see what the original game was like. Well received as far as I remember. What's kind of interesting here is that you're now able to play Four Swords online. Up until when the game came out initially, I believe you had to be in like a local network with 3 other people who had a Game Boy Advance at the time. And now just play it online instead. Phantom Brave, The Lost Hero is an anime thing that I don't understand, so I'm going to keep going. This one, you've probably already seen some people going nuts about this. Marvel vs. Capcom, The Fighting Collection Arcade Classics. So this is 7 Marvel games, basically, that Capcom made. They actually made more than that, but these are 7 of kind of the better received ones. So it's the only 2. There were 3 Marvel vs. Capcom games, so people are like, let's ignore the third one, it wasn't good. Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2 are the 2 big heavy hitters of the collection, and then there are a couple of beat 'em ups: X-Men: Children of the Atom, the Punisher game. Well, Children of the Atom is a fighting game. What's the beat 'em up? I thought Children of the Atom was the beat 'em up. Anyway, Capcom back in the day made tons of Marvel games, as well as a bunch of other stuff. X-Men vs. Street Fighter would have been the precursor, I think, to Marvel vs. Capcom. Anyway, thought that entire collection, Marvel vs. Capcom thing, is kind of the big one. The beat 'em up classics, the Punisher. What's the X-Men one? Is the X-Men one on this? It better be. 'Cause that's good. Well, I mean, the Punisher one is good too, but the X-Men one is the best one. IMO. Don't out. It doesn't look like it is. Anyway, it's a lot of the fighting games, and then the Punisher is thrown in randomly there at the end. I guess they still don't have the rights to the... Oh no, it's Konami who made the beat 'em up. That's why. Okay, that's fine. That's why it's not there. That's all right. Anyway, that is coming soon. I don't believe it has a release date. Super Mario Party: The Jamboree is a Mario Party sequel. Again, it's got a couple of new courses. Then there's a couple of returning courses, various mini games. I'm sure you know what Mario Party is at this point, and if you don't, go find out. It's allegedly the biggest Mario Party yet. The last one was also the biggest Mario Party yet, so it's just getting bigger. It's cancer. Okay, it's friendship cancer. This is how you lose your friends. Play Super Mario Party. Coming October 17th, so they'll be out this year. And then probably what was meant to be the headline thing, and I think the Marvel vs. Capcom one sort of... I saw a lot more stuff about Marvel vs. Capcom on my Twitter, at least. But I did see a lot of this as well. So The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is taking the Link's Awakening remake art style, so this kind of toy-like look to everything, which I really liked. I thought it was a really cool art direction. But the gimmick, I don't really want to call it a gimmick exactly, but the gimmick this time is that you're not playing Link. For the first time ever, Zelda is headlining her own Legend of Zelda game. You should call it The Legend of Link, I guess. I don't know. I haven't heard that joke 400,000 times or anything. Anyway, Link, not around. Link and Ganon go off somewhere, have a party, I don't know. And it's up to Zelda to protect Hyrule from, I assume, this purple shit. Anyway, Zelda not being a fighter, she is obviously the Triforce of Wisdom. If you're familiar with the Legend of Zelda lore, Zelda's the Triforce of Wisdom, Link is the Triforce of Courage, and Ganondorf is the Triforce of Power. So, Zelda not a fighter. She's about wisdom and tactics and that kind of thing. So she's not going to be sword and shielding it. She has a staff that she can use to make copies, I think, of different things and sort of send them into battle. So there's a little bit of, I'm going to say Pokemon exactly, but it's kind of, you're not sending animals into battle so much as you're just sending copies and clones of different things. You can clone this table. There's a lot of different funny art style, not art styles. All of the funny artists have been making like silly things about these, but yeah, you use the tables to make platforms and that sort of deal. You can then also clone enemy mobs and stuff like that. I'm not sure if it's a case of the first time you encounter them that you can just learn it. Anytime you see something, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. So possibly the first time you see a new enemy type or something, or a new in-game asset or anything like that. There's a lot of learnings here from Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom did something very similar with Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, they got everything set up, all the different mechanics they wanted to have working on it, and then Tears of the Kingdom was like, cool, you go nuts with it now. And it does feel like that's kind of what they're doing here with Echoes of Wisdom. They're like, we've got everything set up on Link's Awakening. Here you go nuts with it now with Echoes of Wisdom. Okay, so you can clone enemies, but you have to, it looks like you have to defeat them first. Interesting. I missed that from the Nintendo Direct. You can have clone meat and the enemies will come over and investigate it. That's fun. Anyway, September 26th this year, there's also a new Nintendo Switch Lite. It is Hyrule Edition, so it is the Nintendo Switch Lite. That's the one where you can't take the Joy-Cons off. Just Dance was missing from the Ubisoft Forward. I was kind of thinking, why isn't Just Dance there? Just Dance is always there. I'm glad it's not there. But why wasn't it there? That's weird. Guess they were waiting for Nintendo's Direct. Anyway, that's there now. Lego Horizon Adventures, we saw part of Summer Game Fest. Was shown off here again, I guess, just to remind you that it is coming to Switch as well. It's not a PlayStation exclusive. PlayStation and Nintendo are teaming up for this. Stray, again, now is probably on everything. Holiday season. It wasn't clear if it was a cloud version of the game or not. Stray, actually pretty, high fidelity game. From what I saw of the trailer, the textures are a little lower quality than the game I played anyway, so it's possible it's not a cloud version. It might be like an optimized version for the Switch. Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game. We did see this recently enough, but this is effectively like a life sim, but it's Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings stuff. So you're going to be playing a hobbit, doing hobbit things. There's no like overarching One Ring thing, or, you're not going to be encountering orcs and elves and what have. Well, you might encounter elves and whatever. Gandalf is in this, but it feels more like it's an Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley maybe type thing, life sim. It's not clear if you're going down the farming route, which you probably are because it would be the easiest one, or if it's a shop situation or what's happening. There's the farming actually. Anyway, Holiday 2024. Again, remember, this will be a third-party game, so it is almost certainly making its way to PlayStation and Xbox as well. The Ace Attorney Investigates collection. This is 2 games in the Ace Attorney series that didn't make its way out of Japan, as far as I'm aware. I think that was the deal with this. It's either it didn't make its way out of Japan or it was handheld. No, all the Ace Attorney games were handheld. Yeah, I think this is the deal, is that it never got out of Japan. So in this one, it's kind of different to the usual Phoenix Wright games, where you're playing Phoenix Wright. This one you're playing Miles Edgeworth, who's the nemesis, best friend, possibly lover of Phoenix Wright. Who knows? You're playing him in these 2 games instead. It was played a little bit differently than the usual Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games. It's kind of like putting these kind of puzzle pieces together. It actually plays a little bit more like the Sherlock Holmes games, a little bit. But it does still have the, what do you call it, visual novel trappings. This still has the comedy values of the Ace Attorney stuff. Anyway, new voiceovers, new art. But you can, if you want to, you can go back and play it in old art style. I don't think it's shown. I think I've skipped it. Anyway, you can toggle back to the old pixel art style as well if you would prefer to play it that way. And that is out pretty soon as well, September 6th. The 100-line Last Defense Academy. This won't be out until next year at some point, but this is what the Danganronpa people have been working on. So we played one of their games, one of their later games, Master Detective Archives Rain Code. We played that on the channel. It's a full Let's Play. Went on for a very long time because that was a very long game. I think I was the only person who liked it. Anyway, Danganronpa games are known for this kind of outwardly presenting as sort of cute and fun and wholesome, but the story, if you actually pay attention to what they're saying and what's happening in it, it's fucked up. It's really fucked up. This one seems to be, there's been a huge apocalypse. Everybody's dead. You and like 99 other people have been brought into this school as the sort of last stand thing for humanity. The Last Defense Academy. So I think the deal is it's a base defender type thing, or a tower defense type thing, with you and your compatriots dealing with all of these invaders and what have you. Oh, it's a tactics type thing. Okay, I wasn't paying attention, as you can tell. But then it's still going to have the Danganronpa stuff of, there's shenanigans going on and everybody's fucking dying and what have you, Of the people who were there with you, it's like you might be the last person to survive. Anyway, Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven. So this is a remake of Romancing Saga 2. And it looks really good, actually. So I've never played any of the Romancing Saga games. I've played Saga Frontier games, and I don't know if they're part of the same series, to be honest. Anyway, this kind of presents itself as your traditional JRPG, but it's a little bit different. So the Revenge of the Seven is what it's talking about. Is there were these 7 heroes from antiquity who have turned evil, a little bit Dark Soulsy kind of thing. They threatened to return, and they did, and now it's your job to lead the kingdom, and try to hold off from these 7 returned heroes. So it's getting like a huge remake treatment. I think I called it a remaster there, Head. It's not a remaster. It's like a full-on remake of the game. Tons of different characters to play from. It is still the kind of turn-based strategy stuff, but you are going to have like kingdom management segments as well. It's you hanging out on the throne, dictating what's going on and what have you. End of October this year. I'm quite looking forward to that now that I've seen it. And then Megaton, and there's even a point of showing this trailer because there's nothing in it, but Metroid Prime 4, it's a thing still. It's still going. It's restarted development multiple times. The most recent one I know of is like 2019, I think, where they said they gave it back to the original developers of Metroid Prime, and they've moved on to kind of play through it now, or develop the game. What am I talking about? Anyway, Metroid Prime 4, no release date, anything like that. This is mostly to tell you that, yeah, it's we're still working on it, still a thing. Please be excited. It does look good, and I have been meaning to actually play the Metroid Prime trilogy collection that came out recently, because I never played them. And the only Metroid game I've actually played is Metroid Dread, and I quite liked it. I've never played any of the other games in the series though. And, you know, it's half of a genre of games that I really like, Metroidvanias. Like, it's the first half of it, Metroid. Like, I should be playing these series, and I haven't played, like, the vast majority of it. I can honestly say the same for Castlevania. I haven't played the vast majority of that series either. And they're, like, the guys who invented the genre. Anyway, yeah, more Metroid Prime, but there's no release date, anything like that. It's out soon. No, it's not. It's out not soon at all. Next year? Doubt. If it's out next year, it's the end of next year. Anyway, that was the Nintendo Direct. Some pretty cool stuff there. Some things coming out pretty soon. Brothership will be the end of the year, November. Nintendo World Championship is out next month. Fairy Tail is out the end of the year. Fantasian also looks like it's probably out the end of the year. Basketball this summer. Mio Memories in Orbit is out next year. Disney Illusion Island update is already out. Hello Kitty Island Adventure. No date given. Looney Tunes Wacky World of Sports out in autumn. Among Us update is already out. Farmagia is out the 1st of November. Donkey Kong Country Returns is out next year, very early next year, January. Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remake, middle of November. And then the 1 and 2 ones will be out next year. Who cares about Funko Fusion? Luigi's Mansion is out this week, June 27th, pretty soon. Denpa Man, July 27th, so a month after. Metal Slug Attack Reloaded already out. Darkest Dungeon 2 next month, middle of next month, July. Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, 4 Swords, Metroid Zero Mission, Turok Dinosaur Hunter, and Perfect Dark are all available right now if you have the Nintendo Online expansion pack thing. Phantom Brave The Lost Hero is out next year. Again, I'm not entirely sure what that game was about. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics doesn't have a release date, but I would imagine this year at some point. Super Mario Party Jamboree, October, middle of October. And Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, end of September, September 26th. Just Dance, October. Lego Horizon. It says holiday season, but I think it's like early next year. I think is what they were aiming for. Stray, holiday season. Tales of the Shire, holiday season. Ace Attorney Investigates, start of September. 100 Line, Last Defense Academy, next year. Romantic Saga, end of October. And Metroid Prime 4, 2025, but that's not going to happen. Anyway, moving on. Updates outside of that. Okay, so there was a Games Baked in Germany showcase this year. So these are all games that were either are entirely developed within Germany or have some part of their development happening in Germany. I'm not going to show you all of the games because there's like 20 or so of them. I'm just going to pick out a couple that I really like the look of. So this is Morbid Metal. We have actually seen this before. I think it was shown off at the Game Awards last year. It's got a bit of a Devil May Cry feel to it. It's got a bit of like a spectacle brawler thing going on. What's different here, I guess, it's not different exactly, but Devil May Cry, you would typically swap between your weapon types to kind of vary up what you're doing, make your combos interesting, and push up your style meter and stuff like that. Morbid Metal, at least from the UI I'm seeing, which is none. So who knows? Maybe they do have a style meter. We don't know. But you swap between characters by the looks of things rather than swapping between weapons. So it's likely you don't have a set protagonist. You know, you have maybe like a party or a team of weapon types, and those weapon types are attached to particular characters, what have you. Anyway, it is going for the spectacle brawler type thing, which I am all here for because I really like that kind of stuff. Anyway, Morbid Metal, PC only for now, wishlist now, no idea when it's coming out or out. And music by Blue Stall, so that's why that trailer music was really good. Okay, that's Morbid Metal. Then we're gonna have Ferocious. So Ferocious is high def Turok, effectively. So it's a first-person shooter that has dinosaurs, but also has military guys in it for some reason. What I'm really hoping for here is that it's not a multiplayer thing. I'm really hoping this is like a proper solo, single-player, first-person campaign, because there aren't many of them anymore. So many first-person shooters are multiplayer things. And I get it, because obviously Call of Duty makes a lot of money doing that, and they want to make all that money too, and they're not making all that money. Whereas if they had just made a fucking single-player campaign, I would have bought your game. Anyway, it still looks a little bit rough, but I'm kind of liking the vibe they're going for. You have the dinosaurs, you can befriend some of them to help you out. Again, there's no HUD element in any of this trailer, so who knows. This mech is pretty cool. It's not quite the Titanfall level of mechs, but it's still a pretty cool setup. I was only thinking when I was watching this trailer before, and I was like hoping this is going to be a single player thing, is that I've missed some really good single player first person shooter campaigns, because a lot of the time they would have been marketed as multiplayer thing, but they just happen to have a single player campaign, and a lot of the time the single player campaign is the tutorial, you know, or it's kind of a throwaway thing that they kind of tagged on at the end. That was kind of the feeling a lot, and I got that feeling with Titanfall when they marketed it the first time. Titanfall 2 specifically, because Titanfall 1 didn't have a campaign. So I kind of dismissed it, and everything I've heard about the Titanfall 2 campaign is like, this is incredible. Like, this is an amazing game, amazing story. You have to play it. And I missed out on that, and I kind of feel like if I had known at the time that it was going to have this incredible story, I definitely would have gotten it, and I'm kind of super bummed now that because of the reception for Titanfall 2, you're just like, Titanfall 3 is something people are clamoring for a lot, but it's probably not going to happen. I believe the Titanfall people are in the Call of Duty mines these days, or the Apex Legend mines, rather, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, I think there are a couple of other ones, like Singularity. I know wasn't a multiplayer focused thing, but I've heard that campaign is pretty good. And then there's the other end of things, like Syndicate was a first-person single-player thing, but was shit. So, you know, swings and roundabouts of this sort of thing. Anyway, moving on. Also, we're still in the Berlin German thing. This is Fata Diem. This is kind of interesting because it looks like they're doing the black and white game style thing. So if you're not familiar, Black and White was an old Lionhead Studios game where you basically played God. So it was a bit Proteus as well. And you would look over usually just small villages, and you would kind of manage the people. It's a bit SimCity, but you would also be diving a little bit further into the people element of it as well. And you could be a benevolent god, you could be a malevolent god, and so on. You could hit them with, you know, lightning bolts and storms and what have you. Bit SimCity things when you just cheat. Um, but it also played in a little bit more into your morality. You had this big avatar thing that would walk around the map, and it would be your avatar essentially, but you didn't necessarily have control of it. It was more like a pet. You have sort of had to train it to do things. Nothing like it has ever come since. Much like The Sims, nothing really like The Sims has ever really come out since. They keep trying, but they haven't really managed it. Or at least they're going to try this with Fata Diem. I've noticed that they don't have the avatar animal thing, which was like a really big part of Black and White, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be added later. Who knows? Anyway, that's Fata Diem. And the last one I want to show you from Baked in Germany is PVKK, and I'm going to try Planeten Vertigungskaneko Kommandant. They actually don't have the full name. It won't fit. It's the full German thing. It's like Planetary Defense Commander or something like that, I think is the translation. But it's actually billed as like a cozy sim thing. You are locked into this planetary defense gun thing. You have a little bit of this sort of propaganda elements to it. There's a bit of Helldivers, a bit of Starship Troopers, a little bit of that as well to it. Your job is to man the gun. Got a couple of other things where you need to do like regular routine maintenance and check in with command and get your plans for the day and all of that kind of stuff. And then maybe people might try to break into the bunker and that kind of thing. It's just interesting. I don't know. They've billed it as Papers, Please, but you have a gun. That's how the developers have gone with it. So think of it that way, I suppose. Papers, Please, but you have a massive gun that can take out an entire spaceship. Anyway, none of these have any specific release dates. Anyway, there is a full Baked in Germany live stream that I will link in the paste bin if you want to check that out yourselves. You can do so. So, randomly, out of nowhere, Captain Blood has resurfaced. World premiere. This is a game that was meant to come out, I think, either on the original Xbox or the 360. That's why it looks like that. And they're going all in on it. They're keeping that art style and just making a kind of more in-depth, but like PS2 looking, PS3 looking, must be 360 actually, type game. So this was meant to be a original God of War clone type thing, and that's kind of that's the vibe you're kind of getting from it. But they are looking to add like a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't have got from that kind of game. Anyway, it's just hilarious seeing this game come back, because who is funding this? Anyway, I'll probably still give it a look. Evo Tinction. Now, despite the horrible name, it's a terrible fucking title. Please change it. It's too close to release date. They're probably not going to change it now. But anyway, Evo Tinction. God, I don't even want to call it that. It's a over-the-shoulder third-person shooter type thing, but it's got a much stronger focus on stealth and hacking elements to it. So it's more of like a clandestine. You're in this base that has been taken over. All the machines have revolted against people and they're attacking them, and it's your job to kind of save the number of people that are still there while trying to avoid all these drones or hacking them to bring them onto your team, that sort of thing. So you're not really going to be going all guns blazing on this thing. You're mostly going to be trying to avoid combat. You don't see many hard stealth games anymore, because it's a difficult genre to get buy-in from the entire video game community. Stealth is it's divisive. It's a divisive thing, particularly very hard stealth like this. It's going to be more of the kind of thing where if you're seen, you're probably dead. Anyway, this has been rumored for a good long while. Beyond Good and Evil 2, Beyond Good and Evil, the 20th anniversary edition, had even been in a playable form last year. It was accidentally leaked, and some people managed to grab it before Ubisoft realized what had happened. And then this was posted on the back end of some game stores as they were getting ready to go live with it, because it's actually out pretty soon. But anyway, Beyond Good and Evil HD remastered thing for the 20th anniversary. So this is would have been a PS2, Xbox generation type game. Beyond Good and Evil is a very good game. It's kind of a blend of a lot of different genres at the time. It is, for the most part, a 3D adventure game. It's got a pretty dense narrative going on as well. There's a sort of photography side job thing going on that I quite got involved in. I really like that element of it. Anyway, I've been trying to figure out how I would play this on stream. The original game, because this 20th anniversary thing wasn't available, so this makes it way easier, because I can just put this in the PlayStation and away we go. Getting the PC version to run on the Steam Deck was quite an ordeal. It was not happening. And then even getting it to run on my potato PC was also not happening. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that this version is out so I can just play that instead. Anyway, this will be on the channel pretty soon. But the game itself is out next week, June 25th, on all platforms. Apparently, lots of things. Moving on. Okay, so I'm not going to look too far into this because, as you can see, it's a long video. It's an hour-long video. Never mind the accidental goatsy there. So this is Games to Get Excited About Fest 2024. This is from the Alpha Beta Gamer, who collected a bunch of indie games, dropped them down into a bunch of different categories. There's 105 games in this stream. I'll drop the link into the paste bin, but there's a good number of these games you've seen already on different showcases, but there's almost just as many I had never heard of and thought those are really cool looking. Like, there were a bunch of games here that I had never seen before and straight on the wish list. So definitely give this a look through. It's an hour long, but it's quite breezy. There's very little downtime. It's mostly just here's the games, but it's an hour, so it's an hour of non-stop trailers effectively. Anyway, moving on. The free game this week over on Epic is Freshly Frosted. Freshly Frosted is a puzzle game, so it's like a conveyor belt kind of thing. People make orders for different donut types, different pastries or what have you, and you are building a conveyor belt or a factory floor or whatever to make the donut. So you have the one that bakes the dough, puts the icing on it, and then another station puts the sprinkles on it, and you're trying to make a efficient conveyor belt system for all of it. Anyway, moving on. Monthly games update. So Xbox Game Pass gets its mid-month refresh. So this month we're looking at SteamWorld Dig, SteamWorld Dig 2, so both of them, FC 24, so last year's football game, My Time at Sandrock, which is My Time at Porsche but the desert, Robin Hood Sherwood Builders, I think is like a survival-y type thing, and a Keplerth I've never heard of, no idea what that is. SteamWorld Dig is Minecraft, I think? It's a Minecraft type thing. I'm not sure, to be honest. Robin Hood and his unwavering band of outlaws in 12th century England on their mission for as you travel across various ranges, build up a secret hideout village that is okay. No, so it's not a survival-y type thing. Open world RPG with base building. Yes, it is. Never mind. It is in fact a survival-y type thing. SteamWorld Dig, a platform mining adventure with Metroidvania influences. Okay. Kepler's try to survive on a hostile alien planet. 2D sandbox RPG. Alright, it's a survival sim type thing. And My Time at Sandrock is a life sim, but you're in the desert instead of in your standard sort of idyllic village, which is what My Time at Porsche was. Anyway, those are some of the games you can play soon. But what if you wanted to play something right now? Well, chances are you're already playing Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. So that's all anybody seems to be playing on Twitter and TikTok and what have you. There's a bunch of streamers that I watch as well. Also, pretty much all of them are playing Shadow of the Erdtree. Is this trailer just black? Okay, right. So, Shadow of the Erdtree, DLC expansion to Elden Ring. As you might imagine, that's Mazocore, very, very difficult, very punishing, and so on. The community feedback so far has been, this is actually harder than usual. This is like very hard. Seems to be the general feedback for this. That seems par for the course. Bloodborne's expansion, The Old Hunters, was similarly a huge spike in difficulty. I know a lot of the Dark Souls expansions were also seen as pretty big difficulty spikes as well. So it's not unknown for the DLC to be way harder than the core game. But also people have gotten through it. So, and Elden Ring itself received a bunch of like balancing patches throughout its release window. So I imagine you'll see a little bit of nerfing. I am deliberately not looking at the trailer because I don't want to be spoiled for it. And we will probably stream it on the channel at some point. I did do a full stream full playthrough rather, of Elden Ring. And I'm really just not looking forward to fighting Melania again. I don't even mind fighting Moog. Like, that fight sucked too, but didn't suck quite as much as that Melania fight. Yeah, if you don't remember, go back and look at it. I think it's in the highlights somewhere. Highlights is generous. It's a low light for me. Anyway, so Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is out now. If you want to check it out. And we have Still Wakes the Deep. This is another game that will make its way onto the channel pretty soon. So I've been looking to play this pretty much since it was announced. So this is from the Chinese Room. This is the people who made Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and they're also going to be the developer behind Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. So this is kind of an in-between game. So Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, you may recall, is a walking sim. It's very pretty walking sim, but there's not a whole lot of action to it. It's a lot of just looking at things and taking in the ambience and the narrative and that kind of thing. Still Wakes the Deep is a much closer to a survival horror type thing. There are enemies chasing you, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a huge fan of cat and mouse horror stealth stuff, but I'll put up with it because it looks pretty good and it's in an interesting location. And there's a voice option to have Scottish slang put into it, so I'm actually really looking forward to hearing that because it's something you don't hear very often in video games. You know, typically you will hear US stuff for the most part, and if it is localized, it'll be localized for the UK or for England specifically. Occasionally Wales. It's pretty rare for it to be localized entirely just for Scotland, so that's really interesting. And then the other thing I want to know about it is how well they do handle action elements, because Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is going to be it will have a sizable action element to it, so I do want to see how it works out. Anyway, we will play that pretty soon. Continuing still with new releases, Tavern Talk. I played Tavern Talk during the Steam Next Fest. I didn't stream it. I played it off stream. I quite liked it. It's got a lot of coffee talk to it. As you might have noticed with the titles being kind of similar. It's not the same developer, but it is very much the same kind of game. Coffee Talk was similarly a fantasy vibe thing, but it was set kind of in contemporary modern times. So it's like elves and orcs and what have you, but they're kind of going about their daily as if they lived in our world normally. Like they have a 9 to 5, they have, relationship problems and all that kind of stuff. Tavern Talk is kind of setting you in a universe that is effectively Dungeons and Dragons. They're obviously not going to call it that because copyright issues. But it's definitely like a not Dungeons and Dragons coffee talk. It's kind of what they're going for. If you had played the game Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop RPG, or any of those kind of things, a lot of times the beginning of an adventure or a campaign will be you meet in a tavern. It's a very common trope. It's a very easy way to get all of the party members together, all of the players together. Even if you're in the middle of a campaign, you come to a new town, the first thing a lot of people do is go to the tavern to get shit-faced, but also to talk to the tavern keeper, because they tend to have all the gossip and they know everything about local quests and stuff like that. Again, it's a pretty well-known trope of the game. and they're just leaning into it here with Tavern Talk itself. So that is out this week, and it is also something that I am debating whether or not we'll play it on the channel, because it's going to be a lot of me talking. Pretty much just me talking. And I know you guys love that a lot. Anyway, Blood is the last new release we're going to be taking a look at. So this is a lot of people are billing it as a Legend of Zelda, like an old school top-down Legend of Zelda, and like it does have that element to it, I guess. It's got a lot more action to it though than the typical top-down Legend of Zeldas. Anyway, it's billed a lot like 90s cartoons, very high animated quirkiness, kind of creepy in some cases. The small bits that I had seen before this initial trailer made me think it looked pretty interesting. It's got a bit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer a little bit to it as well. So yeah, we'll probably take a look at this. Mightn't do like a full Let's Play of it. We might show it as Buddy plays games a bit for a little bit. Anyway, it's Blood. That's also out this week. Fortunately though, it's now time to talk about the worst part of video games. Video game industry. So this is a kind of report done by Rock Paper Shotgun talking to Fish Labs Games. Fish Lab Games are the people behind Chorus, which we did play on the channel as well. It is a kind of space dogfighting sim, a very good one. I actually thought Chorus was really, really good. Kind of loses a bit of steam later on in the game, but the early to mid part of the game is quite strong. I would definitely tell you guys to give it a look. I think it's on Game Pass as well. But Fish Labs was pretty gutted by, pun both intended and unintended, by Embracer. They were hit by the Embracer's restructuring program, because they spent all their money and then didn't realize they'd have to pay it all back. You idiots. Anyway, Embracer have spent much of the past decade buying up video game studios and licenses. That's kind of what they did. They went on a big buying spree and then were banking on the Savvy Games Group's $2 billion investment to pay off their debts. And that didn't happen. So now they've really fucked over the games industry considerably, pulling all that shit up. This is what happens when you allow equity in. This is what happens when you allow people to buy on debt instead of with actual money. Anyway, so as of December 2022, Embracer was... This is before they got hit by their restructuring program. So this would have been them at the height. 134 internal studios, 850 individual IPs, and 224 games in development. That has now been significantly reduced. Anyway, Fish Labs were also on the chopping block for cancellations, for layoffs and stuff like that. So a lot of this report is going into kind of what happened with them. So Fish Labs were acquired in 2018 as part of the buying spree. They were bought with Koch Media. Koch Media rebranded to PlayOn. They lost a dozen people in September 2023, and then half of the remaining workforce in November, I think, of the same year. And then Embracer also binned off 2 of their video game projects. So it's, things aren't looking particularly great for Fish Labs at the time. If we go back in time, Fish Labs were founded in 2024, making mostly mobile games. They were sold to Koch Media in 2013. They worked on porting a lot of those games to PC. 2021, they started working on Chorus. They released Chorus in 2021. It's pretty decent. Chorus was a profitable release for Fish Labs. Keep that in mind. It was a profitable release, despite not meeting expectations of Embracer. So the expectation wasn't to be profitable. It was to be disgustingly profitable. That's the expectation that we have from them. So when they say game failed to meet expectations, it isn't that it didn't sell. It isn't that it wasn't even profitable. It's that it just wasn't profitable enough. Asterisk. What does enough mean? It means it didn't make all the money all the time. Anyway, so they went on. They had 2 projects going on at the time. They had Project Black and Project White. Project Black was going to be this in-house, fully new IP, Metroidvania type thing. Sounded interesting. One issue with Project Black was it didn't have a single game director, but rather a board of directors, so it kind of meandered. what the game was going to be, getting things ironed down. A lot of things were done by committee, and when nobody kind of takes ownership of the game, it means there's no responsibility, nobody's pushing forward timelines and that kind of thing. So the game kind of languished a little bit in development. It's kind of an issue really with Fish Labs more than anybody else. Project Black was making progress, but just not making enough progress, which is kind of understandable because they didn't have a driving force behind it. Nobody in particular was at fault for the delays, but it just wasn't coming together fast enough for Embracer, and that I think is fair. That's kind of a fair criticism for Fish Labs. Project Black was deemed risky because it wasn't based on one of Embracer's other intellectual properties. So here's the thing: Embracer were not keen on a new IP. They wanted Fish Labs to make something with their 850 IPs they just bought. Okay. Fine. You did just spend a lot of money to get all of these. Or rather, you spent a lot of other people's money to get all of these IPs. But whatever, okay, fine. So Project Black was then cancelled. And because of that, 12 people lost their job because they weren't working on the project anymore. People who were left over were moved over to Project White. And Project White was going to be a Red Faction kind of thing. It's going to be another Red Faction Guerrilla type game. If you haven't played Red Faction Guerrilla, you are this guy who kind of starts this worker uprising on Mars. Kind of miners uprising on Mars. And the big deal with the Red Faction games was how destructive the environments were. The original Red Faction games would have been first-person shooters, but the idea was you could deform the environment in interesting ways. If there was a door in front of you you couldn't get through, you could shoot around the door and make a hole and just walk around it, kind of thing. Or shoot into the ground to make like cover for yourself so you could fire back and that kind of thing. Red Faction Guerrilla went third-person, more of a sandbox thing, but you could destroy buildings and the environment in kind of interesting ways. And the idea was that the game's physics system was meant to be architecturally sound and correct, so the buildings that were standing because physics. They weren't just like cemented into the world the way most video game assets are. They're there because physics is working on them. So if you fuck up the support strats or whatever, the building falls down. Like, you could take buildings down in very interesting and very novel ways. And then the second game, Armageddon, they didn't really go in on that as much. Didn't do as well. And then Red Faction kind of went to sleep for a while. So the idea was Fish Labs would make a new Red Faction, go back to Guerrilla, because that was probably the one that was best received, and just expand on it. So that was kind of what they were going for. My sources expressed mixed feelings about pitching a new game in a series whose creator studio had just been shuttered, with one describing it as ghoulish. So Volition would have been the original developers of Red Faction. Volition were also the people behind Saints Row. And because the Saints Row reboot didn't do well, not actually sure if that one was profitable or not, but Volition was shut down. So Fish Labs were like we could make a new Red Faction, but like they just shut down the original developers. This feels a bit gross. They went ahead with it anyway. So they felt that this would be a good fit. Project Black that they were working on was a kind of science fiction type thing, so they potentially can reuse a lot of things. Chorus also is a science fiction type thing, so they felt like this is a new entry, well known, it's a proven series. This is what Embracer said they wanted. They wanted you to work on an established IP. Red Faction is an established IP. It is also playing into the strengths of the studio. Surely they'd be safe against cancellation, right? Because we're doing all the things Embracer wanted us to do. Yeah, no. Anyway, moving on. We're going to skip a little bit because it just talks about what the game was going to be and that kind of thing. Since the game's not going to be coming out, I don't really want to talk about it. But morale on the Red Faction project was going pretty well. It was good. People were happy to be working on it. Thought they had something really good here. Fish Labs also felt that the worst might be over. A lot of the layoffs had already happened, and they had already had their layoffs with Project Black, so they felt, okay, they've done the layoffs with us. That's as bad as it's going to get. We can move on. We should be all right. Studio leadership made sincere assurances that Fish Labs were safe from further cuts because they had independent government funding and were making money for Embracer. You know, Chorus was profitable, and Embracer didn't have to give them as much funding because they were getting funding from the government. I believe Fish Labs is based in Germany, so they were getting money from the German government. They had gotten that investment initially for Project Black, but they were able to move it over to the Red Faction game. Anyway, I kind of wanted to pick out this bit because it just struck me as how fucking ridiculous it is that game developers have to do this shit just to get their game greenlit. Anyway, they pitched Red Faction to play on multiple times, not even Embracer. This would be the middleman. The most elaborate pitch came in the middle of November. They screened a fake trailer. So the fake trailer would be like, you know, those bullshot CG things that you see like a lot of video games have before they show off any gameplay. Kind of that. Team members posed as characters from the game with the Red Faction resistance group hacking the presentation given by a sinister corporate agent. Like, they have to do all this cosplay shit and like pageantry and theater just to get their game across, and it just feels unnecessary. But it feels like it is also necessary because money men don't understand anything. Just like, they're game developers, that's their job, that's what they want to do, but they have to do all this shit. Now maybe they enjoyed it, fine, but to feel like you have to do that for every single project you're trying to work on, you're trying to get work for, it just feels like a ridiculous and onerous thing to put on the worker when PlayOn really should be doing the job here. They should be shipping it to Embracer, going, "Hey, you should work on this. These guys have got good shit going." But no, they're instead having to work against mom and dad. Anyway, the Red Faction game was cancelled. Even though confidence that the game would be greenlit, there was a lot of positive feedback from that elaborate thing. Sources said, it's wide confidence that they were going to be greenlit. There was an internal vote held. It was split 50-50, which meant it was cancelled. Fish Labs studio leadership were then told to lay off almost everyone not attached to an active game project. So other things that Fish Labs work on, they do a lot of work for hire support stuff. I think they've done some support on Power Wash Simulator and a couple of other things. So they do have other workers not working on the Red Faction game. But it was still going to be a huge chunk of the team gone. The email came in on a Friday, of course. Of course it was on a Friday. The Fish Lab bosses then had to work, or didn't have to work, but they chose to work over the weekend, draw up a list of people who would be let go. I can't imagine that was a great meeting. Because the Fish Labs team and management team, from what I have read in this, and from what I've seen on like LinkedIn and Twitter and what have you, they seem like they're pretty good. Seem like they're pretty good people, and this would probably be a pretty difficult thing for them to do. An all-hands meeting was called. Surprise all-hand meetings are, pretty rare. It's pretty rare for them to be a good thing, and this will be no exception. But even with that, some people assumed that it was going to be them, confirming that Red Faction was a go. It's greenlit. Let's get this ball rolling. But that's not what it was about. Instead, it's you've lost your job. Staffers entered the meeting. It was obvious what was coming. As a quote from one of the people at the time, "You could see that both the company chiefs have been crying a lot, and there was a representative from PlayOn there as well. So yeah, this isn't going to end well. 50 people were laid off, cutting across all departments: level design, narrative, game design, programming, art, animation, so on. As with the previous cuts, a handful of staff were transferred to different teams. However, also just kind of shows the integrity of the management at the time. Studio development director and the managing director both stepped down afterwards. It's kind of an editorial piece, but it's one that I kind of agree with, and it's kind of the way the industry's going and kind of what Embracer has done to the video game industry. But anyway, in gutting Fish Labs, Embracer have done a colossal injury to one of the industry's kinder creative communities. My sources painted the picture of a studio with a transparent and supportive working culture in which the leadership were visible and involved day to day. Staff trusted each other, people weren't guilt-tripped for taking time off, and everybody felt like they had a chance to contribute in a meaningful way, and Embracer went, meh. That's pretty disappointing. The November layoffs were more chaotic. Some people had recently moved to Germany, meeting part of the relocation costs themselves, so they're not getting that back. Others were still on probation, meaning just fuck you. It's two weeks of severance is what you'll get under German law. It's definitely not going to be enough for you to, if you're having to pay rent in Berlin, that's not going to be enough. Certain team members were based in different countries, which obviously affects their severance packages as well. If you're based in the US, good luck. According to several people, Fish Lab's leadership and the company's embattled HR team were able to arrange a better deal in some cases. So they were still fighting for them, even though some of them had also lost their job. So asked why they felt... so people who were laid off at the time, they asked what went wrong? Why was the project cancelled? What was Embracer's deal, and so on. And kind of the general gist of it is that companies overhired, overspent during the boom period created by the COVID lockdowns. Everybody was locked down. People wanted entertainment, video games. They made a lot of money during that, with much investment going towards garbage. They invested in stupid shit like Web 3.0, NFTs, the metaverse, and now generative AI. Not investing in the fucking video games and the people who make them. How about do that instead? No. Let's go after stupid shit. And none of these have delivered desired growth because that's all they care about. Number go up, even as global interest rates have risen and scared away investors. So, number not going up fast enough has scared away investors, which means getting additional work is becoming an issue. It's becoming an issue for Fish Labs as well. Expensive AAA projects have never been more expensive, requiring enormous returns just to break even. Because, again, investors are insisting on you making the game that is already making a lot of money. They're looking at COD that has huge development costs, and they want you to make that. So, okay, we're going to incur huge development costs, and people are already playing COD. They're not going to jump to the new game. Now, be shocked that you've wasted all of that money. Anyway. Simply having a stable business isn't enough for investors. Revenues must grow by a chunky margin. If they don't, costs must be cut. And of course, the first cost to be cut is labor, not you guys spending money on generative AI garbage. No. We make a shitload of money, but it doesn't go back into the games. It goes into a lot of now very wealthy people's pockets, and the people who actually make the games kind of scrape by most of the time. Yep. That seems to be the gist of it, alright. Moving on. Anyway, speaking of Embracer and cancelling games and expecting ridiculous returns on investment. Anyway, Embracer shutters Alone in the Dark to Pieces Interactive. The Alone in the Dark reboot, remake, what have you, just didn't do well enough for them. So Embracer has reportedly shut down, they haven't actually officially mentioned it yet, reportedly shut down Pieces Interactive. If you go to their website now, it'll simply say 2007 to 2024, thanks for playing with us. Pieces Interactive has released over 10 titles, yada yada, and they're talking about their latest one, and that's kind of it. Allegedly didn't reach Embracer sales expectations. So remember their sales expectations, guys. It's not enough to be profitable. Not enough to make them money. You gotta make them all of the money. Speaking of all of the money, CEO Andrew Wilson is 60 million. No, that's not quite right. It's like 30 million or something, but still, that's way too much money. EA execs earned $60 million in 2024 despite layoffs and office closures. Hey, some of that profit we're making, that's apparently not enough money for you. Could you maybe just slice a zero off your salary? The one guy's salary who does fucking nothing. Anyway, US publisher EA reveals how much its executives netted during financial year 2024. Annual net, yada, yada, yada. Andrew Wilson, the CEO, makes about 30 million. So half. Half of it. Half of the profit. Anyway. There's more to this article. They go into like the actual breakdown of all of it and what have you, and how much of it is stock and how much of it is cash and what have you. But they can't say that you're not making enough money and we have to cut costs. And here's a very obvious cut right here. Almost half of 60 million, CEO Andrew Wilson. Here's a pretty easy cut. They go all, they invest a lot of that money into generative AI shit, and they're using it to replace the standard developer who does the actual creative work, when it's never mentioned that you could use this to replace the CEO too. That never seems to get trotted out though. I wonder why that is. Anyway, we're not done with the layoffs, unfortunately. Paradox is closing its Tectonic studio following Life by You's cancellation. So earlier this week, Life by You, which is going to be Paradox's attempt at The Sims, was officially cancelled. It had been delayed multiple times from going into early access. It was eventually delayed indefinitely from going into early access and has now been officially cancelled entirely. So it's no longer plans to release the title, which is hugely disappointing because Life by You looked really interesting. They were going to be focusing mostly on user-generated stuff, so making the game very moddable. Releasing a moddable suite for people to do with, kind of close to stuff like Dreams or Little Big Planet. Maybe not quite to that level, but the idea would be that most of the game assets and that kind of thing would come from the community. It's obviously a lot less work for the developer, but it also means you can make something really interesting. It's not going to happen now because fucking Paradox. Anyway, Paradox Tectonics employs 24 people. All of them are now done. Paradox Interactive CEO Frederick Rester said, "Sadly, with cancellation of their sole project, we have to take the tough decision to close down the studio." You cancelled it. Cancellation didn't just randomly happen. Sadly, cancellation accidentally happened to the studio. Oh no. Terrible, you did the cancellation. Just ignore that bit. We have to take the tough decision. Sorry. It's out of our hands. No, you did this deliberately, you absolute piece of shit. We are deeply grateful for their heart. We are so grateful that I'm firing all of you. Trying to take Paradox into a new genre. Yeah, Studio was established just before COVID. It was led by Rod Humble, who was formerly the head of EA's Sims game and was also somewhat in charge of Second Life at one point as well. Paradox's deputy CEO had this to say: "This was an incredibly difficult call to make and is a clear failure on Paradox's part." I mean, I agree with that bit. To meet both our own and the community's expectations. A time extension was an option for the game, but once we took that pause to get a wider view of the game, it became clear to us that the road leading to a release that we felt confident about was far too long and uncertain. Well, you know what's going to be really long now? They keep making the next game. You're starting from scratch now, guys. Anyway, when we come to a point where we believe that more time will not get us close enough to a version we would be satisfied with, who's we in this case, then we believe it is better to stop. This is obviously tough and disappointing for everyone who poured their time and enthusiasm. Tough and disappointing? I think it's a little bit more than that since you fired them. Especially when your decision comes so late in the process. Yeah, I mean, that's also a management issue. But again, we're losing developers. We're losing what could have been a really interesting game. May not have done well. I mean, City Skylines was also Paradox, and that hasn't done particularly great. City Skylines 2, specifically. So it could have turned out the same as that. It's not to say that every game that gets cancelled is that we're cancelling a 10 out of 10 game. Sometimes they're cancelling a 5 out of 10 game, and maybe it was the right thing to do. We don't really know, but it's just frustrating that they made this decision so late in its development. Like, they've already put in a ton of work on it, and they don't have anything lined up for them down the line. It's just very short-sighted, cost-cutting stuff. That long term, they're going to find it very difficult to recoup money, to start generating money again, because they're losing developers. They've cancelled a game that was pretty far into development. Whether it's the right decision to do or not, the fact that they don't have a thing coming up is just very short-sighted on their part. Speaking of more developers getting closed down, Wizard with a Gun developer Galvanic Games are closing down. Sales weren't strong enough. Again, not enough money. So The issue here is a little bit different for Galvanic Games because they are an independent studio. They don't have a parent company looking over them. They're not Embracered or anything. It's just the sales they made from the game were not enough to keep the studio going. They just didn't make enough money. Ongoing sales of the game were not enough to keep the studio going. Despite the promising start of Wizard with a Gun, sales are not strong enough, I assume he's meant to say. It actually says strong enough. Anyway, to sustain our studio. Company founder Patrick Morgan. Last year's been particularly tough for games. We had numerous encouraging conversations at DICE and GDC. However, the process of signing new projects, even in a very good year, takes longer than the runway we had left, so they didn't have enough money to keep the studio going in time to get another project signed. Which is obviously a shame. It's just that it costs a lot of money to make games, even not like super high definition AAA things. Labor is expensive. It's a Seattle-based studio. Seattle is expensive. And not making the money is just like, this can happen, but this isn't a case of, you know, cost-cutting MBA private equity shitheads. This is just a business failing, which of course happens in capitalism. It's sad to see it happen. Wizard with a Gun did look really interesting. And is still there. It's a question of who gets the money now. I think it's like Galvanic Games are closing down. The business is ending. It's not necessarily layoffs so much as the company does not exist anymore. So who, if you buy the game now, I don't know. I don't know where the money goes. Basically, does it all of it just go to Steam or to Valve? Okay, back to Xbox. Xbox's Matt Booty implies Tango Games' closure was partly due to leadership change. So this is a pretty shitty thing for Matt Booty to say. But he was asked during a podcast with Variety, you know, what was the deal with Tango Gameworks? Why did you close them? Why didn't you try to find a buyer? What have you? So this podcast isn't video game focused. It's more like a business focused thing. So they weren't going to go into like, Hi-Fi Rush was so good. Why didn't you know? They're more going into, it looked like it was a good asset. Why did you get rid of it? Anyway, I won't get into the real sort of nitty gritty details. Why not? You're a publicly traded company. I'm presuming you're going to have to tell your investors at some point why this happened. About what it went into the decision, mostly out of respect for the people there. Fuck you, Matt. Fuck you. What people there? It's not, the company doesn't exist anymore. There was a lot of work that went into delivering Hi-Fi Rush. It was a great game and, you know, did well for us. So, again, why did you close them? The thing to be considered is that for us, it's as much a forward-looking situation as much as it is looking back at one certain game. Yes, we looked so forward at this studio that was doing really well and was very promising. We just decided to cancel them. Okay. Did he look so far into the future that he saw the heat death of the universe or something? There are a lot of things that go into success for a game. You know, what leadership do you have? What creative leadership do you have? Is the team the same team that shipped something successful previously? So we have to look at all those things together and then ask ourselves, are we set up for success going forward? Yes, you were. You were set up for it. Just short-sightedly count them. While there may have been factors and situations that previously led to success, that may not still be in place as you look at what so what they're alluding to here is Shinji Mikami leaving Tango Gameworks. So Shinji Mikami, previously with Capcom, worked on a lot of the Resident Evil, creative director for Resident Evil 4. He left Capcom, founded Tango Gameworks, made The Evil Within, very much still Resident Evil, The Evil Within 2, and then he took more of a backseat role at the company. Focused a little bit more on the management end of things. Creative directorship was left to somebody else to work on Hi-Fi Rush and Ghostwire Tokyo. Ghostwire Tokyo, not as well received. Hi-Fi Rush, extremely well received. And then Shinji Mikami left Tango Gameworks. We're not sure what he's doing now. I think he's just taking a break. / possibly retiring. The point is, the team that shipped Hi-Fi Rush didn't involve Shinji Mikami. He was there as like a nominative producer end of things, but from a lot of interviews, that kind of thing, he was pretty hands-off with Hi-Fi Rush. So this idea of, you know, what leadership do you have? What creative leadership do you, is it the same team that shipped something successful previously? Yes, it is. They have priors, Hi-Fi Rush. It's there. The team that made it is still present, or was until you shut them down. That doesn't really hold water. But the other element of it is this is sending a signal to people at Xbox's current studios who are in the creative management side of things that if you leave the company, we will fire everybody. Cool. So now I have that hanging over my head for guilt. Thanks very much. You're basically saying that like promotions are not okay. Like retiring is not okay because we'll lay off the entire studio if you disappear. Like, what are they meant to take from that? The morale is already terrible with, here's a studio that made a really good game that was critically well received and sold very well. And we cancelled you. Already they're like, we gave you everything you wanted and you still shut us down. And now it's, you need to stay in your job forever. Or not, or we will fire other people. Collective punishment for you trying to do better for yourself. Anyway, more evidence that Matt Booty shouldn't be in charge of Xbox Game Studios. Continuing on, ex-PlayStation boss says obsession with lengthy games and photorealism has to go. So this is from Sean Layden. He was the CEO of PlayStation before Jim Ryan. You guys all know how I feel about Jim Ryan. He definitely took PlayStation in very much the wrong direction. And we're feeling it now because PlayStation has no games for the rest of the year. He focused on too much going in on the prestige shit. Every game had to be this incredible blockbuster prestige, pushing the graphical envelope. Like every single one of them had to be that, and not just one game, maybe two. No, all of them. So this isn't the first time Sean Layden has said that. He said this like way back 2016 or something like that is when the first time he started talking about it. Devs need to stop chasing lengthy games and photorealism where it's not needed. Now, I would argue it's not the devs doing it. I would argue it is higher ups going, we want you to just, this game made money, so keep making that game. And this other game you wanted to make, it doesn't look like that other game that made money, so go make it look more like that other game that made money. That's all it is. He does make an interesting point, and it does come up a lot in like developer discourse and how much effort you should really put into a game and how long should games be and what have you, because 32% of players finish the game. The vast majority of players don't finish the game. Some of them only play it for like an hour or two, like me, when they're streaming it, and then forget about it and move on to another game. Some people get bored halfway through it. Some people find the new hotness. Some, whatever happens. Some people are busy with their giant forever game, like Warzone or Genshin Impact or League of Legends or whatever it is that's monopolizing all of their time. They don't have the time to play through your giant game as well. Think of something like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's like a 200-hour game. How many people finished that? How many people did all of that content? Even their smaller games, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is still a 100+ hour game. How many people finished all of that? You can't leverage this too much at PlayStation specifically. Some of their more popular games are shorter, but they're not very short. Like the original God of War games were maybe 6 or 8 hours to play through the whole thing. And the newer ones are closer to something like 30 or 40 hours. Maybe not 40. 30 is probably more correct. Spider-Man is about the same. Again, if you go back in time, the PS2 era, PS1 era Spider-Man games were very short. 5 hours maybe. 5 or 6 hours. Last of Us. I don't know how long The Last of Us is. The original one, 8 hours maybe. Seems fine. But again, they're going in for like graphical things that so many people aren't going to see. Like, how many people are going to see Joel grimace when he swings a bat at somebody? Because a lot of the time you're looking at the back of his head. Is anyone really going to see it? Is anyone going to see the wrinkles appear? Like, not really. Maybe if you dive into photo mode, but even then, is it like people change the expression to make it look funny instead? Like, talking about photorealism, Layden said graphical improvements that devs are chasing are barely noticed by the average player. We're in the realm of differences that only dogs can hear. Like, there's a lot of things like what is it called? Subsurface diffusion or something like that, which is if you have the light source behind somebody, you should be able to see part of the light suffuse into the skin. And yes, physics-wise, that is like, that's how it works. But do you really fucking care? You don't need to be spent, and this is like very difficult stuff to do. It takes a lot of development time to make that work. And it's just, you're not going to care. Really. Nobody cares. Making sure like the individual very small hairs on somebody's face are perfectly pristinely rendered. Again, it's very impressive, but like, do you need to do that? Could be making smaller. You know, it goes back to the meme again. It's like, I want worse games that take longer to make, and I'm not kidding, or something like that. You're putting too much effort into something that hardly anybody's going to notice, and a ton of AAA game development costs is because of that. At a certain point, when you're going for photorealism, high fidelity, you're going to start hitting diminishing returns. You're going to start hitting, this is as far as the technology can go, and we're going to have to wait for another technological leap. Whereas if you go for a striking art style, or a less realistic but more stylized look to things, they tend to have better longevity. They tend to resonate with people more. They're also easier to make. Not easier, but they don't take as long to make. Not taking as long means you're not having to pay salary, which means your costs are down. So, anyway, last thing we're going to look at is a really fucking weird labor kind of thing. So, Polish developer apologizes following criticism for naked sauna job requirement. Right, you may or may not have seen this making its way around. It's kind of a viral thing going around video game development, social media. But the kind of gist of it is, it was a Polish developer that was expecting employees to agree to mandatory sauna sessions and that they would be nude during those sauna sessions. This came about because another narrative designer and writer, Alexandra Walnut, was talking about something kind of important, was that kind of work that people have done with the publisher group All In Games. A lot of them haven't been paid. So trying to get like back pay, actual pay, and that kind of thing, remuneration for that sort of thing. But then this guy, Spectrum Studios creative director, Jashi Pirkowski, doubt I said that right, he chimed in talking to Alexandra Walna. They've apparently talked to each other before about her working with him on his next game. And she said she declined it because of the sauna thing. I politely declined because of the sauna thing. And this is them talking to each other, comments under a LinkedIn thing. She was talking about not getting paid by All In Games, and she was looking for a job. So you came in to say, hey, do you want to maybe think about my job thing again? She said, I reminded him that I declined and told him why, which can be seen on those screenshots. He then started to try to convince me and others that there is nothing wrong with what he's expecting of his employees, that they be nude in the sauna with him. Okay. Well, Alexandra, he tried to, he amended a number of his comments at the time, but he still defends the decision to ask employees to participate in sauna sessions, stating that it was a requirement because it is what the studio's game is about. So they're making a game about sauna things or something. I think the character you play in the game is running a sauna or something like that. And he's like, I don't want to waste my time to explain what's the difference between two different types of sauna. You have to feel it. And it's like, no, you have to feel it. And then be able to accurately convey that feeling to other people. Like, this is, again, it's taking a bit of the method actor approach to things. And it's like, rather than actually act, just do the thing instead. You know, live the life of whoever it was and just stay like that in method forever. You know, if you're going to be playing a shop clerk who's always awake at midnight, then you have to get a job as a shop clerk and be awake at midnight. Like, do you really? You know, there's this thing called acting you can do. Do your research, sure, but you don't have to go that far with it. And it's the same, like, this is focused mostly on the narrative team, the people doing the writing, doing the dialogue, doing the story, doing whatever. That they, know what it's like to be in these different types of saunas. And it's like, no, not every author actually has to embody the thing they're writing about. No, it's enough to do your research on it. Like, if you were writing a fictional story about a serial killer, no one would expect the author to go around serially killing people. That's not how it would work, right? No one would expect them to become a top-of-the-line chef in order to write about a character who is a chef. It's not necessary, and also not really feasible. You don't have to become a math prodigy to write a story about a math prodigy, because also it's probably not possible, and you're going to be busy being a math prodigy at that point. Anyway, a job listing for the game was decked out there. They're talking about what the game is going to be like. The studio list then at the bottom of the requirements is that there's a mandatory sauna sessions are specified. There's no mention of nudity. The reason for the nudity was that some sauna things are, I don't know, they go in about towels cause fungal infections or something. I don't know. Sounds a bit suspicious. Sounds a bit like I don't like condoms. That's what it sounds like to me, but okay, anyway. On a separate thread, he said this mandate is not about getting naked. Yeah, sure it isn't. Sure it isn't. It's the experience of different kind of saunas, and apparently the wetness level gets so high that using a towel will cause you fungal infections, and it's like, no, you just want to see some boobs. Anyway, Alexandra coming back to kind of point out that there's a very big difference between making sure a candidate is suitable for the job and an employer expecting its staff to be naked during work-related activities. There's kind of a huge difference there. Pieroski replies that my narrative girls, this is a direct quote, my narrative girls had to go to the sauna with me to come up with an amazing script for proof of concept. Did they? Why do they have to go with you? Could they not have gone by? Okay, one, they shouldn't have to go at all, but why did they have to go with you? And also, my narrative girls. Okay. And then he even concedes later, technically it is possible to do this without going to the sauna. Anyway. Right, he allegedly apologized. Doesn't sound like an apology, but whatever. I didn't intend to embarrass, hurt, offend, or show disrespect towards Miss Volna. My choice of words was bad. I didn't state my intentions clearly. Yes, you did. You very much did state your intentions clearly, and they're fucking weird. I didn't explain why taking a sauna is so important and practically essential for me. Yeah, again, you did. You did. It's just wrong. Anyway, I wasn't expecting that it would be received as pretentious and cause negative connotations. There's no actual apology here, but okay. And apparently he said narrative girls because the team was mostly female. Like, no. You said my narrative girls. Not like the team's narrative team. My narrative girls is what you said. Anyway, he spoke about how he's so super passionate about saunas and what have you. This is kind of getting a little bit long now, but I'm looking for people equally passionate about the culture of taking saunas and open to experiences that are part of that culture. My guy, you are looking for writers. Those writers will be passionate about writing. That's what you want. Or you want to see boobs. I don't know. Anyway, I proposed and I'm still proposing that they can do, single sex, women only, men only, what have you. That still requires you to be nude around your colleagues, your work colleagues. Would you just think about people you work with? Do you want to be nude around them? Not really. No. I think I have nightmares that are like that. They start like that anyway. Right. He stated now that he is also consulting with an HR specialist regarding this case. I kind of feel like you have this the wrong way around, my guy. Probably should have started with that. Anyway. Fucking weird. moving on. What's going on with the community? So, with Shadow of the Erdtree coming out, or released as the time of this broadcast anyway. So before that, Elden Ring players were kind of stacking up outside of Moog's arena to kind of help out. There was a noticeable uptick in like summon signs and stuff like that. So the community trying to get together to get people ready for the DLC. So if you're not familiar, Elden Ring's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC requires you to defeat 2 optional bosses. One of them is a fairly gimmicky boss. You can do that solo. You don't really need anybody's help. Not that it's easy necessarily, but gimmicks that come up in that boss fight make it so that you don't really want a partner with you. But the other optional boss fight, Lord Moog, is a tough fight. He's a difficult fight. He's a fairly late game boss. You're meant to be pretty heavily leveled at this point. The game is expecting that you've already tackled some of the more difficult aspects of it, so they're like, cool, here's your test. And Moog is a significant test, but he's also the gatekeeper for the DLC. So you need to be able to defeat Moog and then interact with something in his arena to move into the DLC. So people are kind of stacking up outside of Moog's arena and being like, Kotaku has gone dark for some reason, I don't know why. Why do you do this? Why you do this to me, Kotaku? I think if you go up to the tab bar or something, it's trying to display an ad, and then my ad blocker is blocking it, so it's... Anyway. A requirement to get into DLC area is that you must have defeated those 2 characters, so people are offering help in these trying times. So people commenting on like Reddit threads and inside the community and Twitter and what have you. It's be here all night to help people who need to defeat Moog. I will heal you and die for you if I have to, and stuff like that. There was a notable uptick in posts looking for or offering assistance with Moog and what have you. So it's good to see that the Souls community can be like very toxic in some ways, but they can also be very like helpful. And I do feel that if you go look for it, if you do go look for help, you are going to get the get good shitheads. You are going to get them, but you are going to get people like genuinely looking to help you. It does remind me of the first couple of weeks when Elden Ring came out. Like there was a strong community thing of people looking for stuff and looking for help, but then also kind of pointing out things for people that may not notice. You know, it was like a real like coming together with a lot of people playing the game, and it does make me want to jump back into Shadow of the Erdtree, but also I just don't have the time for it right now. Yeah, it's FOMO. I mean, that is exactly what FOMO is, but anyway, it's good to see it. Elsewhere on the community, Kingdom Hearts as told by Steam reviews. So there's people who have now been able to give like... Up until now, Kingdom Hearts had been something you could kind of get on consoles or on the Epic Games Store, but none of them had like user comment sections. But Steam does have user comment sections, so they've been able to leave their comments, and some of them are pretty funny. Some of them are pretty funny. Use your launcher of choice to see Sora go from a starry-eyed child to a starry-eyed young adult who has seen horrors beyond comprehension. Yeah, the Kingdom Hearts story is pretty fucking nuts. Anyway, some really funny ones though. It's like, Donald, just cure me, I'm begging you. Donald Duck, party healer, never fucking heals you. It's really... It's both frustrating, but also like, God damn it, Donald. We've done it. The absolute best franchise on Earth is on Steam. Now I can fully enjoy Donald not healing me on my Steam. Yep. F for all the people who bought this on Epic Games Store and now ended up buying it on Steam again as well. Also, a lot of people going, you know, glad this is finally out of the Epic Games Store and what have you. Not buying it on Epic, waiting 1,000 days later to buy it on Steam. 10 years of experience playing this game and I'm still lost in Wonderland of the Deep Jungle. Yep. Those 2 areas are super confusing. And then still like some things about Mickey Mouse and direct quotes from the game. Mickey Mouse saying, like, say fellas, did somebody mention the door to darkness? Say fellas, did someone mention the door to darkness? Uh-huh. Etc. They'll pay for this, said Mickey Mouse, what have you. It's game gave me depression. Yeah. Kingdom Hearts will do that, alright. Anyway, there's a lot of very silly comments from Kingdom Hearts fans, I'm gonna guess. That's what it is. Anyway, we will leave, I guess, Shadow of the Erd Tree to loop in the background. And I will just deliberately not look at it. Anyway, that was the news. Your video game news for the 17th to 23rd of June 2024. Good stuff coming out of Nintendo's Direct. I mean, a lot of it is stuff you would have expected from them, but a couple of things that we weren't expecting from them. A new Legend of the Zelda. Kind of expected, but again, we weren't expecting that Zelda would actually be a protagonist for a change. Metroid Prime 4, reminding people that, yeah, it's still in development, still going. Someday soon, we might see it. Two other showcases, games baked in Berlin. Games baked in Germany. Showcase had a lot of really interesting games that are developed either partially or wholly within Germany. And then also the Games to Get Excited About Fest, which had 105 games or something. All of them indie games, all of them really interesting looking. The monthly, the Xbox Game Pass thing is nothing super impressive, I think, came out of that. New games, Shadow of the Erd Tree, obviously, DLC. We have Still Wakes the Deep that we will be playing eventually on the channel. Tavern Talk, which is effectively coffin talk? Well, no, coffee talk, but in like fantasy Dungeons and Dragons land. And Blood, which is kind of like a 90s Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of cartoon game. Industry bullshit. We did get kind of a bit of a behind the scenes there for Fish Labs. Partially, some of that is Fish Labs' responsibility with them not taking a strong enough rudder for their Project Black game. But obviously a lot of it is also on Embracer for just being terrible stewards. Just spending all of their money and then having everybody else fuck up their life to try to recoup their losses. Like, they've been, maybe the worst thing to happen to the video game industry since the ET game from Atari. Like, they might actually be the worst thing since then. They might even be worse than that. Monetarily, I think they are worse than that. Anyway. More studios being shut down, layoffs, developers not being given a chance to improve on their games. Like, Pieces Interactive for their Alone in the Dark game. I mean, you've been playing video games for a long enough time. What you'll discover is that the sequel is usually the better game. You know, there aren't too many times where the original game is better. A lot of the time, certainly going back to PS1, PS2, PS3 era, the sequel is typically the better game because they had learned their lessons from it. And also, they weren't now having to set up the building blocks anymore. The building blocks were there. They could just play with them. Peace is not being given the chance to do that with Alone in the Dark. And remember, it's just said that they didn't meet expectations or sales expectations. But as we saw, being profitable is apparently not a sales expectation. They have to be ridiculously profitable to be a sale to meet expectations. Anyway, they're not going to be given the chance to do that. Similarly, Fish Labs not being given the chance to work on like a Chorus 2 or a Red Faction or whatever. Just for short-sighted cost-cutting things because Embracer were extremely incompetent and negligible. How this isn't like a criminal thing? I don't know. How this can't be seen as gross negligence on their part. But apparently it's not. As long as somebody made money, I guess it's fine. Anyway, that'll be it from the news. So what's happening on the channel this week? Try not to look at that. Know what that was about. Here is our big wall of games for the year. So some games I have moved in. So the Beyond Good and Evil 20th anniversary thing. So I've moved that in now. We will get to that some stage this year, soon enough anyway, so I do actually want to play it. Still Wakes the Deep has lost its clock, or lost its lock, rather, because the game is actually out now, and we will be playing it pretty soon. By pretty soon, I mean this week. Anyway, last week, or this week, whatever way you want to look at it, we played V Rising as part of my Fully Plays Games a Bit series, which is where we play newly released games for a bit. V Rising is like a vampire Diablo survival type thing. So you're a vampire, you need to like build up your castle, gradually get more powerful, work your way into civilization and what have you. Right now, I'm still not quite sold on it. It's like I'm thinking I haven't quite hit the I don't know, the tantalizing bit of the game. It still feels like I'm in the tutorial. Probably because I am still in the tutorial. There's a lot going on in the game. The combat, like I'm seeing all this shit in the trailer, and I was like, when do I get to do any of this? You know, when do I get to do this shit? Because the combat is very basic right now. Maybe it changes down the line. But yeah, we played a little bit of that, and I have since gone back to it and kind of restarted a little bit on it as well. Off stream, I've been playing a game called Blacktail. We did play this on the channel back in 2022, I think. So Blacktail is the story of Yaga, who's looking for her sister Zora, and she encounters Baba out in the forest, who's the witch. And you put the two names together, Baba Yaga. This is kind of an origin story for her. It's mostly a first-person archery kind of thing. It's kind of playing really heavily into kind of fairy tales. It's kind of allusions to things like Snow White and that kind of thing. I really liked it. It's got a lot of charm to it. The characters are really fun. It's got a pretty grim storyline. Fun, somewhat intended, I think. grim fairy tales as well. Kind of sad thing that I had about it though is that when I finished the game, I was more concerned with whether or not the studio was actually still going. And this game hasn't been out that long, so I was kind of thinking they should be, right? It hasn't been out that long. I think this game did pretty well. It's won a lot of awards for its narrative. So I wanted to check, is the Parasite studio still going? It looks like they are. I think. It's hard to tell. I think they're still going. Hopefully they are. But yeah, that's Blacktail. Pretty interesting. I quite liked it. I did platinum it. I liked it enough to stick with it, to platinum the whole thing. Yeah, hopefully they're working on whatever their next thing is. I don't think I had another video here, did I? No. Okay. Anyway, so our schedule for next week looks as so. I didn't get to much this week. I think the only stream we did was V Rising. It's very tired. Sorry, I'm just very tired these days, guys. Hopefully it's not something. I don't know why did my brain go there. Let's just not think about that part. I'm tired. That's it. I just need sleep. We'll leave it. We'll stop there. Anyway, Tuesday and Friday, Final Fantasy V. Wednesday, we're going to start Still Wakes the Deep. It's part of my Fully Fables series, which is where we play games that have a very strong narrative focus. And then Thursday and Saturday, Resident Evil 5. We were meant to start Resident Evil 5 yesterday, but I just didn't get around to it. So we're going to start it on Thursday instead. And then Sunday, we have the weekly news recap, which is the show you're watching right now. Talk about the video game news of the week. Right, that is it from me. That's your news for 17th to 23rd June 2024 and your channel update for next week. I will be back on Tuesday, but for now, have yourself a good rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you then. Bye-bye.